Good morning everybody and welcome back to another episode of Bareham Engines. So before we go any further guys, I've noticed that the subscribers have not been climbing as they usually are. So if you haven't already guys, please hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell and you'll be notified whenever we put out a video. Cheers. Right. First job before we start the Golf R today, we've got an exhaust manifold, and as you can see this is a slightly different one to we normally do. Normally we do the TD5s, we get a lot of them, but we do many other manifolds. This one is off a Nissan, obviously a Nissan diesel of some sort. You can see it's a 4-cylinder and you've got the built-in sort of manifold here that the turbocharger bolts to. You can see how bent this is. 15 thou we took off this so far, and you can see it started to clean in the middle. Yet on the outside of both edges, it is still like a banana. So this thing is bent like that. So we're going to put another 10 thou cut on here, ish, something like that. Put our feed over, and this lever here makes the table feed that way. So the feeds and speeds on this, you've got the speed for the head. Now you've got, electrically, you've got 2 in the centre there, you've got 2 speeds, okay, 1 and 2, and then you can change the various speeds depending on the belts. Inside there, you've got a couple of pulleys and a belt, and depending where the belt is, depends on your spindle speed. So at the moment, we've got that belt on the bottom. So you've got low and high, 1 and 2. So over here electrically, we're on number 2, which is the faster of the 2. And high and low, we are on high speed here. To turn that knob 180 degrees will be low speed. So in effect, we've got 3 things to change here. We've got the 1 and 2 down the bottom there. We've got high and low here, and we've got the 4 settings on the belts. So we are high, number 2, and on the bottom. So we are running 1100 RPM. Now this thing goes up to 3600 RPM, but we tend to just keep this one on the bottom. So we either run high 1100 or 550, or on low for sort of tap in and things like that. We've got 75 to 145. The feed of the bed goes on this down here. So we've got the high and low. To engage high and low is a lever here. It's pulled out at the minute, so we're in high speed. And we are running 6.5 on the feed. If we go round clockwise, we go to 9.2. So obviously you can see there it's visibly going faster. And when I go back to 6.5, see it visibly going slower. So with the sort of feed on this, it is purely just to how you want to go as fast as you can to get as good a finish as you can. So if you're going too fast, it means that the thing will be probably cutting too much meat off at one go, struggling a bit. You don't want that. You don't want to put any sort of extra load on the job, because obviously it's a bit of a Heath Robinson setup. So we tend to just go what sounds nice. So this sounds like it's cutting nice, you're getting a nice finish, and it's going fast enough. You know, you don't want to go so slow. The slower you go, the better sort of finish you get with this generally, especially on cast iron, but you don't want it to be on here all day. So with 10 thou cuts, we certainly don't really want to be going any faster than this. Maybe could go slightly slower, but with these bent manifolds, if you go too slow, as I say, they can be about 2.5 mil bent. So you'd be on here most of the bloody morning if you're doing 10 thou cuts. But yeah, you can see now that's cut that end. Hopefully we get to the other one. So we're not really going to have to take any more than about a mil off this, I wouldn't have thought. Right, so on the milling machine at the moment, you can see we're refacing this. This is a Triumph Stag head. I had to think there for a minute. So thank you very much, by the way, for many of you guys in the comments when I was describing this thing when it came in, said that the cylinder head was pretty much the same as a Triumph Sprint head. they did correct me in stating that this has 8 less valves than the Sprint engine, which, yes, what I meant was the stud pattern for the head bolts or the head studs is the same. Clearly this is an 8 valve, whereas the Sprint engine is a 16 valve, one head. But anyway, I showed you in last week's video, we've got the block on here refacing the head, refacing the block faces. These are obviously the heads. You can see that the aluminium, we always find this on the Stags or the Triumphs, the aluminium is a bit horrible compared to other cylinder heads, like the casting wise. You can see it still hasn't cleaned down the back there, and I think after this one cut of this is about 15 thou, we're going to have to take the tip out and sharpen it to get a decent finish, because you can feel that there is a little bit rough. So yeah, Isaac's give these heads a good clean this morning, bit of a blast, and he's put the bronze guide seats in there. You can see inside the guides. So yeah, he's sleeved those now, so we've got a lovely nice fit on those old valves that we've cleaned up and faced. And yeah, we'll see what this one turns out like when I've sharpened the tool. That is the V8 head. Now I have tickled up the tool, and you can see there we've got an absolutely beautiful finish. There's a slight bit of sort of corrosion here, but you can't do anything about that, and it's outside the gasket line anyway. So all we've got to do now is cut those valve seats, assemble the head, and that one is done, and just the other one to do. Right guys, so we've got the Golf R cylinder head on the Centronic here, and we're going to show you how we use our new valve seat cutter. So as you can see here, I've cut these 4 seats. This head is pretty good, to be honest with you. There's no guide wear, etc. At all. So all we're going to do, we're not even putting the 3-phase cut on there, we're just going to put a straight 45 just to true the seats up and make sure they are all vacuuming absolutely perfect. So I'm going to set my little tripod up there and just show you how we go about cutting the seats. So what we do first, guys, is obviously we find the correct pilot that fits down the guide, or best pilot we can that fits as snug as you can. Most of the time you're not going to have one that fits absolutely perfect. There may be a little bit of play, but that does not matter at all. Obviously we've got the straight 45 cutter in there, you can see that. So next thing we do is we put it down the hole, holding obviously the cutter. So that is now down in its home position. And then what we've got to do is first of all set our height, or set our cutter to where we want it, which we've obviously done. To move that cutter in and out, to obviously give you a wider or a narrower diameter, what we do is we take this little tool, we put it in this lock nut here, slacken it off, and we can move that tool in and out where we need to, and then nip it up. So we've obviously done that. We need to set our height. So if we slacken this off, holding the unit so that can slide up and down, we can lower that to probably normally go about 1 mil and a half with the cutter, 1 mil and a half above the seat. Obviously with this one wound right to the top. So the next thing they recommend you do, obviously these are the buttons at the top here for the magnet. So what they reckon you do is you centralise the unit before you put the magnet on. You want to centralise so that rubber looks sort of even all the way around. You don't want it over to one side, you want it sort of roughly in the middle. And then what you do is there's a button up here with 1 and 2, you press 1 and that there fixes the electromagnet onto there. Right, next thing we do, so that is in the central position. Then if you sort of grab here, you can feel there's a bit of movement forwards and backwards and side to side. Now all our CNC one used to do was do this on its own. But to be honest with you, all we do is we sort of just feel up and down, put it roughly in the center, side to side, same thing. So that is sort of roughly in the middle now. And then there's a knob around the back here that you just tighten up, and that tightens that into the center. Now what we do, we take our we take our motorised drive, put it on the top, pull in the button, and now that thing is driving. Now what we do is we wind this one down very slowly until it starts to cut. You can see now, you can hear it, it's starting to cut on one side very slowly. That is all the way round, so we just leave it to do a couple of revolutions, then wind it off all the way back up. And that seat, so we slacken that knob off there. We put the magnet over to 2 for a split second, then back to 0, and then we can now lift that one off, put it up here, and that seat is cut. So it's simple as that, guys. So all I've got to do is just finish those inlets, do the exhaust, and we'll get this thing set up for a reface. So Isaac has cleaned the car up today, and it is looking way better now. He's even cleaned the steering wheel, haven't you? Yep. Looks lovely. He's giving it the once over now. But as you can see, we've got it on the trolley jack, and the reason for that is when we left Castle Combe last time, although it was absolutely peeing down with rain, obviously we had a little oil leak from the diff back there, which isn't so apparent when we're using the car. It's more so on the way home, isn't it? You notice it when we get back, there's a bit on the trailer, so we have got to sort that out, but we haven't really got time at the minute. But we did notice last time, and it was probably over dramatized by the water on the floor, but there was quite an oil leak from the front, it seemed, but we thought because you could sort of oil in water, obviously it gets spread around, so we thought it may not be that much, but we ought to check it out. So at the front here, you can see down there, that is the oil, that is a sort of universal union there holding the oil pressure gauge and the oil temperature gauge, which we put in the end. So that is obviously in the main oil gallery. And Isaac, I said we'd better check that first, because obviously it was a bit oily around there. And if we, so obviously he's jacked it up, and the first thing he's noticed, if we can try and get into focus down there, is without even trying, that's what we've got. So the thing is loose, obviously there's oil pressure there, so alarmingly that is obviously going to be hosing out oil from the just from the oil pressure alone. So we've obviously got to tighten that up. It could, obviously that's going to, or could give us engine damage, but more importantly, mate, it could be spraying out oil onto the track, which is not going to do anyone else any favours, or us. So yeah, that's what we found. With a bit of luck, it looks like that could be. We did buy a clutch cover gasket because we thought it may have been that, but having brake cleaned it off, I think it's all right. And we've never had, apart from that, we've never had any other issues with it leaking oil. So fingers crossed, we've solved that. So this was the union that was in the bike engine in the kit car, and you can see it's an adapter. We fitted this originally. Now I think what the problem is originally it has a BSPT fitting, or fitting on the end of the oil pressure gauge, and the oil pressure gauge goes into this oil gallery. So obviously when the engine's running, it's under oil pressure. Now we fitted this union, and the reason for that is so we've got 2 entrance points. One, we fitted the oil pressure gauge, and then 2, we've got an oil temperature gauge, which, to be honest with you, hasn't been very effective. It's been all over the place, so we're going to have to find another place for that. But as you can see, we've took this off. Now the reason I think it's come loose is because this is a parallel thread. I can't remember whether it's M10 or BSPT or BSPP, but it's basically a parallel thread, and it's got that washer on the end with the rubber O-ring, which originally did seal okay, but the taper, the BSPT thread on the end of the oil pressure gauge is obviously tightens up nicely into the block. So what we've done is we've put the oil pressure gauge back into the block, so we've at least got an oil pressure reading, which is the main thing, the most important. We're going to find another entrance point for this oil temperature gauge, and we're going to do away with this because we cannot have that coming loose and spraying oil on the track. So at least we found the issue, guys. At least there's no blown gaskets or cracks in the block or something like that. It was just that, but it could have been a lot worse. Well, thanks ever so much for watching another video, guys. Until the next time, Have a lovely evening and we'll see you then. Cheers, guys.